North India. Traveling in India, when rightly understood, affords a unique occasion of making new friendships and getting in touch with the masses. Anyone sincerely wishing to make personal contacts with all classes and castes must not be content to rush from one place to another by car or to enjoy the quiet seclusion of a first-class compartment. There are two things which go straight to an Indian heart, more eloquent perhaps than any words. The first is the wearing by Europeans of the national dress, especially if made of khadar, which is a hand-spun and woven material. The second is the use of third-class carriages in preference to first. The discomfort of hard wooden seats will be amply compensated for by the breaking down of the barriers which unfortunately exist between white and colored races. An Indian crowd is never ugly or vulgar, as is nearly always a crowd in the West. The poorest people have a natural refinement, and even when ragged and dirty, are never repulsive. Their first instinct when confronted by the European is, as a rule, one of exaggerated respect, but tinged with fear. They are conscious of what amounts to an inferiority complex. The white race has long treated them as inferior, and they realize their lack of liberty and independence. When, however, their quick intuition tells them that only sympathy, appreciation, and the desire of understanding animate their foreign fellow travelers, they are ready and happy to lift for a few moments the mask which hides their true personality. This can only happen when mutual confidence prevails on both sides, based on a sincere feeling of fellowship, which naturally finds the expression as soon as one is convinced of the essential brotherhood of man, by reason of their common divine origin, to whatever class or nationality the individual may happen to belong. There may be differences in degree of development and in station in life, but that need in no way impair the sense of respect which one feels for fellow pilgrims in the divine quest. Rather, should it impel us to reach out in terms of kindness and understanding, and even affection, to those who may be struggling at a lower level of existence. It is not sufficient to know this intellectually in terms of theory. It should be felt and experienced as a living reality. While waiting for the departure of our train, I purchased a newspaper from an Indian and was about to turn away when, to my astonishment, he said to me with a quiet smile, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, "I will take you for my goddess." Rather staggered at this unexpected news, I ventured to ask the reason and received the reply, "Because you are wearing our national dress." The man was evidently so sincere, simply expressing in his own way a feeling of gladness for what my sari stood for, that I could not help realizing how much can be done for mutual understanding, and that without the medium of words. Owing to the heat, the windows of the carriages are always open, not to speak of the doors, but wooden shutters enable one to ward off the sun during the hot part of the day. A written notice had some weeks ago attracted our attention, which warned travelers not to lean any part of their person outside the carriage. We all wondered at the all-inclusiveness of the term any part, but were now quite enlightened as to its meaning. Indians do not appreciate sitting with feet reposing on the floor in the usual European fashion. As soon as they get into a train, for instance, they invariably slip off their shoes or sandals and adopt the cross-legged sitting posture. Their favorite position, however, is that of lying down with their feet higher up than their heads. Naturally, in a train, the best place is to put the feet out of the window, ensuring for them a maximum degree of coolness. This habit may be due to an unconscious need of the body in a tropical climate to relieve the lower limbs of blood pressure. As we left behind us the Madras presidency and entered the central provinces, the scenery changed. The lakes, green palms, and coconut groves and rich red earth disappeared, and a colorless plain stretched for miles upon miles without sign of life. Half dried up riverbeds wound through the desolate landscape, while the sun blazed down with increasing ardor. Already the parched earth cried out for water, yet 2 months would still elapse before the rainy season set in. At the various stations, we went to fill our lotas. These are brass metal containers used to hold water, or waited till the men came around with the Hindu pani. We learned to drink by making a cup with both hands. The system of pouring water from a distance straight down the throat needs practice and skill, but is worth adopting and learning for the sake of cleanliness, on condition one does not mind being laughed at. Distances in India are so enormous that nobody considers 3 or 4 days as constituting a long journey. However, we decided to stay a night en route at Wardha, and from there would proceed to Allahabad. The sun was nearing the horizon, and the stifling air had become cooler. A young woman squatting on the seat opposite us suddenly began to sing. Clad in a very simple sari with a few bangles on wrists and ankles, her smooth black hair carefully tied into a low knot, she gave an impression of grace and simplicity. With closed eyes, she sang an old Indian song of worship to Krishna, the Lord, the divine lover, just as naturally as a skylark at dawn mounts heavenwards to greet the rising sun. So great was her devotion that she seemed to pour out her very soul in adoration, her face reflecting her inner aspiration as the calm waters of a lake mirror the mountain top. Oblivious of her surroundings, heedless of the noise, her song of praise went forth, and when finally she ceased, the night had set in. People had stopped talking, and under the starry heavens the train slowly pursued its journey northwards. Wardha seems outwardly to be an insignificant little town, known as a mere junction station by the Europeans on their way to or from the south. In reality, it is a center of supreme importance and the heart of a great movement of reconstruction, which is gradually spreading all over the country. In the first place, Gandhi has his headquarters here, where he stays whenever he is not traveling about. By headquarters, let us not imagine a large, comfortable building. India's great man lives in extreme simplicity, not to say poverty, with no luxury or comfort whatsoever. In the second place, Wardha is the headquarters of the All India Village Industries Association, which was founded by Gandhi in December 1934 as the outcome of a resolution passed by the Indian National Congress in October of the same year, stressing the necessity of village uplift and reconstruction. Unaffected by and independent of the political activities of the Congress, this association forms an all-inclusive organization where, irrespective of sex, faith, and opinions, all who desire to serve the motherland may find a splendid opportunity of working actively to relieve the untold misery of the masses. Unfortunately, Gandhi happened to be away, but we had the good luck to meet the organizer and secretary of the association, both prominent workers embodying the essential characteristics of the Indian temperament and outlook combined with the efficiency and organizing capacities of the West. Experiments carried out in one part of the world may well benefit the whole of humanity in its efforts to establish an ideal society. It may therefore be of interest to summarize briefly the economic scheme of Gandhi which forms the basis of the society, and to see how it will gradually improve the whole life of the people. The plan of reconstruction put forward is of great moment and importance for India. Unlike Western countries, India is and always has been essentially a land of villages. Actually, nearly 90% of the population is rural. The principles that directed this village organization in the olden times are still found to hold good today. And the new establishment whole program revolves around conformity with the plans laid out by the original founders of the scheme, expressing, however, those great principles in a manner best suited to the circumstances of our modern times. What were these basic ideas regulating the whole life of the village? Firstly, to assure a minimum means of livelihood to every individual. Secondly, to avoid competition and undue profit making. Thirdly, to make the village self-contained, depending on no outside agency for its primary needs. And lastly, to give spiritual things the first place. No plan could have been more wisely thought out for the ultimate good of every member of the society. No plan more conducive to greater harmony, both spiritual and material. Why then do we see today the heartrending plight of the Indian village? Why, in a country where there should be ample sufficiency for all the masses, half starving and hardly able to keep body and soul together, the methods of the West which have been introduced by authority have proved fatal and have brought wreck and ruin in their wake? They are ill adapted to India. In the past, the villagers had, in addition to agriculture, flourishing local industries producing all that was required for their daily use. The advent of the large factories and machine-made goods deprived the people of this means of livelihood, the cultivation of the land proving quite insufficient to ensure a minimum income. Congress workers began by studying both capitalism and communism to see how far they could put forward a satisfactory solution of this great problem, and to what extent each gave a free scope for the harmonious development of the personality, this being regarded as the touchstone whereby the true value of a system is to be judged. Capitalism was seen to give free vent to profiteering. It is accompanied by greed and selfishness, depriving the worker of his independence and going hand in hand with imperialism, war, and the exploitation of weaker peoples. Communism was also rejected. While trying to do away with financial magnates and the lust for profit, it suppresses entirely individual initiative, making man a mere cog in the wheel of a system. In both cases, the masses are denied self-expression and scope for creative work, which are absolutely essential for the happiness of the individual and hence of society as a whole. The right solution was therefore not found in either system, but in an economic plan based, as in the olden times, on making the Indian village self-sufficing. Decentralization and Swadeshi, the main guiding principles, including both a minimum profit making as well as a certain amount of social control, but never to the extent of neither exploiting the masses or hampering individual enterprise. Decentralization means refusing to dictate from the center how things are to be produced and what kind they are to be, but leaving that always to the good sense and initiative of the producer. In this way alone can there be any scope for free expression and development of personality. What is understood by Swadeshi? Well, Gandhi expresses its meaning as follows. Swadeshi is the only doctrine consistent with the law of humanity and love. It is arrogance to think of launching out to serve the whole of India when I am hardly able to serve even my own family. If it were better to concentrate my efforts upon the family and consider that through them I was serving the whole nation, and, if you will, the whole of humanity. This is true humility, and it is love. The motive will determine the quality of the act. For instance, I may wrongly serve my family, regardless of the suffering I may cause to others. As, for example, I may accept employment which enables me to extort money from people. I may enrich myself thereby, and then satisfy many unlawful demands of my family. Here I am neither serving the family nor the state. Or I may recognize that God has given me hands and feet only to work for my sustenance and for those who may be dependent upon me. I would then at once simplify my life and that of those whom I can directly reach. In this instance, I would have served the family without causing injury to anyone else. Supposing that everyone followed this mode of life, we should have at once an ideal state. All will not reach that condition at the same time. But those of us who enforce it in practice will clearly accelerate the coming of that happy day. Under this plan of life, in seeming to serve India to the exclusion of every other country, I do not harm any other country. My patriotism is both exclusive and inclusive. It is exclusive in the sense that my service is not of a competitive nature. Use your own property in such a way that you hurt no one else's. This is not merely a good legal maxim, but a grand doctrine of life. It is the key to a proper practice of ahimsa, non-violence, of love. It is for us, who are the custodians of a great faith, to show that patriotism based on hatred, that is the killeth principle, but that patriotism based on love is to giveth life.